TV Strasburg, $245 million for 7 years. Joe baseball.
Did he stay with the Nationals?
Yep, I think so.
That's what I thought.
You could fund something with education.
No food stamps, right?
Kidding? No kidding.
Wow.
There's somebody that's paying.
Think
Think of the guy that has the money to pay him now.
Yeah, it's all the people that show up to the stadium pay that
Yeah.
much for tickets.
Good.
He's on Sean's phone.
Must be.
Oh, no.
Oh, that's,
Oh, is
I
that
was
you?
using that as testing with that one.
No, it's just the time delay. I'm thinking,
I'm like,
what? Something I said like 20 seconds ago.
That sounds like weird.
Okay.
Well, it's working.
Good evening.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
Good.
I'll be super.
Well, I thought you were coming here to recite some oral turf for us.
Yeah.
Well, good. So now when I talk about it, you can actually straighten out what I say wrong. That's good.
Congratulations, Coach. Hey! Thanks.
Okay, well, it's 5:30. Go ahead and call to order the regular meeting of the Madison Central School District. Mitch is not here, so Joel, will you record the members present and absent?
Yep, should be here any second.
Okay. We do have a quorum. So with that, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. We've all had a chance to review the agenda, and there's been no changes that I'm aware of, so I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved?
Second.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion that's on the floor to approve the agenda, vote by saying aye, or yay?
Aye.
Aye, how about aye? Those opposed, nays? Okay, declare the agenda approved. Next item is the approval of the consent agenda items 7 through 9. I think you've all had a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting. Angie, Steve, and myself reviewed the bills. I don't think there was anything that stood out there. Financials have been made available. Mr. Jorgensen, personnel matters.
Personnel matters. A request to hire June Rakuso as a weekend custodian. She'll replace Paul Morin at $13.30 per hour. Also Nicole Johnson as a paraprofessional to replace Diane Fries as a middle school paraprofessional at $12.05 per hour. And then Krista McDermott for elementary office professional to replace Stacy Hunsley. Mrs. Hunsley moved to the middle school office position, and Krista McDermott would be at $12.55 per hour.
Okay, so recommend we approve those. I'd entertain a motion that we approve the consent agenda items 7 through 9.
So moved.
It's moved by Tom, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Steve, and we'll give that one to Steve. Any discussion on any of that? All right, hearing none, those in favor of the motion, please vote by saying aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, hearing of the delegation, and we have none. Glad to see that you showed up, Matt. Okay, here, administrative reports.
Well, I'll start off with the Oral and Terp State Meet. Mr. Gross is here, and talking with him this morning, and correct me if I have anything wrong here, all 7 performances received a superior. And in Coach Gross's recollection of going back to the mid-90s, I believe is the term you used for me, He believes this is the only time in Madison Central has received all superiors, so congrats, and I believe you said some even had perfect scores, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, CC Graham in humor and the Readers Theater team both got perfect scores.
So congrats on exceptionally well performance, and to your own interpreters as well. So congrats on a great season. Since last time too, I'll say congrats to the volleyball team for their participation in the state volleyball tournament, with the consolation championship. So congratulations to those young ladies and coaches. We need to acknowledge an early retirement request. Just making you aware that we have had one additional retirement request, which will be taken then with any and all requests we have for early retirement policy, which will be taken forward here for review at a January meeting. So right now, I believe we have 3 that have been turned in for a January meeting. The deadline then is 1st January, so there could be more, and we'll have that information at our next meeting.
But there can't be any after January 1st.
Yeah, correct, after the certain time frame. And I don't have from me if it's the first Monday or I think it's the first Monday back, actually. There's 2 different ones. One's first Monday and one is the first. It depends on which one would request it, so.
If I could answer Angie's question a little bit, once in a great while we have granted an exception, but the rule is that, and we try, particularly this year, we probably will stay with that.
Yeah, there would have to be an extenuating circumstance for them not to get it in time. Current open position we have, Director of Maintenance. We have started the interview process, but that is still currently open right now. Upcoming schedule, December 20th we have an early release for Christmas break and for in-service, and then Christmas break runs from December 21st through January 1st. And then in January on the 20th we have no school for the teacher in-service in Hartford. That's the winter symposium that we've gone to for a number of years with a number of different schools, and it's hosted down at Hartford. Policy review process. Policy Review Committee will bring forward again some additional policies tonight in section E and F for review. Some are just review, some are first readings, and then we also have a couple policies from last month for a second reading. Our CTE, DOE sent it out today again on their listserv as a reminder, but see it in action. DOE's Division of Career and Technical Education organized a series of See It in Action days to see firsthand what schools in South Dakota have done to provide top-notch CTE education for their students. The January 8th, 2020 See It in Action Day will be held here at Madison Central School District. Schools have to sign up with the Department of Ed prior to December 31st, and it's limited to X number of schools. So on January 8th, we'll be hosting some educators from around the state to see our CTE program. Esports. What's going on at the college? Mr. Lissinger has had some organizational meetings. He was in this last week talking, and right now we have 63 students interested in the esports. So he's in the process of getting sponsors as far as getting different computers together that would meet the gaming requirements. It's the very early stages, but again, there's been a lot of interest generated by students. So and it's a club activity, so we'll see how it moves forward. That's good. Anytime we get more kids involved, that's a good thing. The last thing I'm going to touch on a little bit is the governor's budget proposal. Governor Noem has proposed a 0.0% increase for general education funding. And there's been a lot of talk out there about, $14 million in new funds. Well, there is some additional special education funds, a little over $7 million, and that's a rebase that happens every 3 years. And that's looking at the categories and what the costs are. They get averaged out, and every 3 years they get changed. So that's one. So that was set to happen regardless. Okay. The other is the additional funding that she brought up has nothing to do other than for any additional students we may have in our state next year. So if we have 1,000 extra students, she's got the dollars to cover that, is what she put in her proposal. So as far as following what was in state statute with CPI or 3%, whichever was less, that was not proposed. And again, that's just the proposal that that the governor comes out with every year. This year was 0.0. Now I think it's a matter of we need to work with our legislators and get them on board, because when we entered into the Blue Ribbon Task Force and into the new funding formula, districts gave up a lot of different revenue sources that were there and had been there for many years, including the pension fund, which covered our South Dakota retirement, capital outlay changes, fund balance changes. And the districts, the school boards, administrators, we've all held up our end of the agreement. If this would go through at 0.0 or anything less than 2, that would be 2 out of 3 years since this was enacted where the legislative body did not hold up their end of the agreement. So it's hard to be held to the target teacher accountability and everything else when the funding hasn't followed the accountability that they put in place. So it's our opportunity. I've never heard of a legislator that runs for office that doesn't support public education. I think sometimes they get to peer, maybe they forget that at times, but I think we just need to remind them, and it's a chance for our legislators now to see what they can do to hopefully come up with some funding for the districts in South Dakota. So again, it's the proposal that's out there. Doesn't mean that's the final proposal, but I do think we're going to have to be very active in holding our legislative body accountable for what they put in place. They voted it in, and yet if this would be anything less than 2%, it'd be 2 out of 3 years since it's been voted in and hasn't been followed. So that's just my take on it. I'm looking forward to working with our legislators and seeing what we can get figured out. So.
I will add to that. I was encouraged this morning on Kettleland, they interviewed 2 different legislators on each side of the aisle.
Yep.
And both of them referred to the state statute.
Yep.
And that we need to follow this. So
Yeah.
I thought that was very encouraging.
It's the only area in the state statute that has an actual requirement of increased funding, but there's been a lot of years where they've waived it and not followed it too. So I just think we have to be, again, it's the proposal. Nothing's done until the very end. So hopefully by that time, the revenue source will have some more revenue numbers that come in at the end that they can come up with it. The other part is, you can go back and almost every year, I know in the last couple of years, there's been 16 million, I think it was, and 19 million in leftover funds each year. So that gets turned over into the general fund to balance out in Pier. So there's means out there. And the other thing I'll say is that, the state workers it didn't show them having an increase either. And they deserve one as much as anybody. But what is in that budget is, I think it's 4.1 or it's 4 something million dollars to cover their increase in insurance. So it's not apples to apples. School districts aren't even getting dollars to help cover insurance costs. So it's not the same. And again, good for them. I'm not against that, but it's not the same when they say it's 0 for both. It's not. So anyhow, that's all I have on administrative report.
Tom, do you have anything? Oh, sorry.
I have nothing.
Sorry, Steve, or Sean, what were you saying?
Joel, do you have a gut feeling on the situation this year versus what it's been in the past? You have a gut feeling on where we're going to end up?
Sort of a sickening gut feeling right now, but no, I don't. I think they'll come up with something. I hope anyway. The downside is coming up with a little something and not coming up with 2% really still shouldn't be something we just feel good about. Because, again, it would be just falling, we're going to slide right back into where we were. This is done for teacher salaries and to target teacher salaries to get them to go forward. Every time we don't follow what's in place, we're going to slide backwards. It's just that simple. And I truly believe that the increases have attracted some people to go into the profession. I know it's kept some that stayed in the profession longer, which helped our shortage. If anyone thinks we don't have a teacher shortage still, that's incorrect. We have a teacher shortage still. That hasn't changed a whole lot. And I think as we get each year moving forward, some of those that stayed on and decided to work longer, I think now we're gonna get to a point here pretty soon where they're not going to do that. And then we're gonna see a bigger change in a hurry, I think, of a shortage. So, we've gotta, and it's a tough position for legislators. I'm not saying that our funds aren't tight, they are out there, we know that. But it can't always be on the backs of K-12 education. I don't know if that answers your question. I think that there's a will out there to get something done. It's just a matter of where they decide they want to spend funds.
Okay.
Good enough answer for me.
Okay?
Mitch, did you have anything? Okay. Move on to the next item, and that is the second reading of the following policies: DBK, Budget Transfer Authority, and DIE Auditing. This would be our second reading for these, so.
If you pull up that first one there, Steve. No changes from last month. You can see in the bold print, it just adds the language that's in 1316.6, and it adds 1316.9 as another one of the legal references. So no change since last month other than to update what the current statute is.
Okay. And DIE Auditing.
And here again, it just changed the word accountant to independent public accountant. That's what the wording is in the audit program. No change since last month.
Okay, I would welcome a motion to approve these two policies, and then we can have discussion if we need to.
Moved.
We'll give the first to Steve this time, second to Ange. Any discussion or questions? Okay, hearing none, those in favor of the motion that's on the floor, please vote by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Okay, our next agenda item is the review of some board policies that the policy committee took a look at. And I will go through and read what those are. EACC-R, bus violation report to parents. EACC, student conduct on school buses. EBBB, accident reports. EBC, emergency plans. EBCB, fire drills. EBCD, emergency closings. ECAB, vandalism. EEAD, special use of school buses. EEAD-R, transportation agreement. EEAE, student transportation in private vehicles. EF, food services management. EF-R, meal account policy. EHABA, web page development policy. ELB, buildings and grounds maintenance. FC, facilities capitalization program. And as Joel indicated, we did not have any recommended changes for those, and they are still needed, so unless anybody has any questions, we'll just move on. Discussion.
And then they'll be listed as reviewed in the policy book.
Okay. All right. We will have the first reading of some policies. We'll start with ECAA, access to buildings, and what the recommendations are for that.
See the policies up there. Top, the key control, we're just gonna say entry devices, because in some cases it could be a key, other cases it's a fob. So we're just referring to it as entry devices. So building and classroom, strike out keys and put entry devices. Will be checked out to, strike out each, check out to staff members as needed. We're striking out the beginning of each year as necessary, because sometimes it may be a coach that's been hired in the middle of the year for junior high, whatever it may be. Keys must be checked, and the next two sentences strike out. Keys must be checked into the principal unless permission is granted to retain them for part of all the summer months. Keys checked out to coach or supervisor's activities must be checked into the principal at the end of the activity. We took those out because we have activities going on summertime too, for camps and everything else. Strike out the and at all. Strike out keys. Entry devices remain school property and may not be duplicated or loaned without administrative approval. Any abuse in the use of school, strike out keys and put entry devices, will result in disciplinary action, and then, which will include the loss of privilege of long-term. That was stricken out because disciplinary action can be different depending on what the situation is. So it's mainly trying to get it up to speed with entry devices and what's going on right now, what we're following. Questions on that?
Okay, move on to the next one. First reading of PEAB school bus scheduling and routing.
Just two minor changes, one addition and one deletion. Under C, district buses will not travel on private roads except as required to meet the requirement of the Individual Disability Act or with administrative authorization. Because we may have a situation where there's a private road and it makes sense as long as we have permission and approval from those people, we'll consider doing it. But every case may be different, so. And then under open enrolled students, number 2, the school board will consider the transportation request when the open enrollment application is acted upon. That's not how we handle open enrollment. Transportation, if it's on one of our routes that we can fit it in, we're not driving 5 miles out of our district to pick up students. So that is not factual that we cover that during open enrollment applications. So we're just striking that out. And then down below, legal references 13, 12, 1, 2 is no longer a reference. It's not there anymore. It's been repealed.
Anybody have any questions on that?
So the one where you're gonna eliminate the school board's ability to pick up a kid at their,
No, it just says we'll consider transportation request when the application is acted upon. That's not when we talk about transportation. They'll talk with us on that ahead of time usually.
okay, but you're not saying that you're not gonna go out. and-
Correct, no.
If it's an open enrolled kid, you're gonna get them here by bus now.
Or a point somewhere in a route, for example.
Okay.
But we're not gonna go 20 miles out of our route to pick up the students. Yep, yeah, it's not changing, that currently isn't how we handle it, though. We don't talk about busing at all when we have open enrollments come in to the board.
It's a separate.
Yep,
All right, so that is the first reading, and we will review, or take official action, I should say, in January on those. Well, that being said, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Oh,
You already,
And may I have a second?
Second.
Okay, no discussion on that. The meeting adjourned.
good job, Mr. Cole.
Well,